Joe Hopkins here, and you can read the video title, Where is the Voice of This Generation? Now, by this generation, I mean the kids, the ones that are, teens, early 20s, under 30 kind of thing, 15 to 30, that like age group in there. And every generation kind of has a voice, right? And that voice comes out in a lot of ways. Now, my channel, I mostly talk about music, but in this case, I'm talking about the voice of generations in general, right? Every generation has their popular music. They have their writing. They have the journalists, the painters, the artists, the playwrights, the people that basically speak for the generation. And it usually, not always, but most of the time, is somebody in their own age group. So where is the voice of this generation? And I'm a little, to be honest with you, a little concerned about that. I understand some of the motivations of, well, let's say popular artists, popular writers, musicians, singers, that kind of stuff. You've always had the ones that mostly just do what'll sell instead of what speaks to deeper things. Because, I mean, come on, you got to make a living. Everybody, you got to have your bubblegum music. You got to have your distraction type stuff. You got to have the things that just take your mind off it and are pleasant to listen to, watch, read, that kind of thing. But usually you have people that are involved in something deeper. And unfortunately, I'm not seeing a lot of it in this current generation. And it kind of disturbs me. I'm not saying it's not there. It is. But it's not as prevalent as perhaps it should be. And it certainly isn't as mainstream as it should be, most of it. You take a look at the music industry, it seems like the younger artists are, the ones that are on the charts, are mostly, oh God, they're just doing shitty, meaningless pop songs written by a team of old people. Because let's admit it, like Dr. Luke and Max Martin and The Dream or whoever, all these different songwriters and songwriting teams are not young. And they're not speaking for the young. They're not even attempting to. Sometimes older people do speak very well for the young. It happens, but these folks aren't trying to. This is just party music, and it has its place. But where's their Bob Dylan or their Kurt Cobain? Where's their John Lennon? I really feel kind of bad for this group that's coming up now, because as far as I can tell, when it comes to, like, there's a lot of good independent music by young people, but when it comes to the stuff that's really being put out for the world to see on the world stage in a big way, I think they've been hijacked. And if there are any young people out there that watch this, I mean, I've looked at the demographics of my channel, and most of the people watching this are older and male. But if there are any younger people watching, I'd like to know how you guys feel about that. Your generation, the voice of your generation, has been hijacked by old people. Nobody, like I said, the music industry is old people writing songs for young people to sing, at least in the mainstream. And the artists that do have something to say are all in their 30s and up. And they're not speaking for you. They don't really understand your struggle. And of course, by you, I'm speaking to the younger people. How can somebody in their 30s or 40s know what it's like living in this time as a 20-year-old, as an 18-year-old? I mean, as somebody who's in their mid-40s now, I knew what it was like to be 15 in the 90s. I don't know what it's like to be 15 right now. I can imagine, but I'm not living it. I don't actually know what it's like to be 20, 21, coming of age, making those big life decisions, in a world that has the problems we have now. I made those life decisions in a world that had the problems that it had over 20 years ago. You know, and I know what it's like to be 21. I know what it's like to be just entering life and making the decisions that will affect the rest of your life. But I don't know what it's like to do that with all the problems we face in 2023. To have been brought up through the COVID pandemic and all of the political issues and the social media issues. I'm seeing all of what's going on now from a different perspective than that. And the people that are writing songs and writing books and doing all the things that are supposed to speak to the world, those people, they're all older people that are looking at it from that perspective. And it's unfortunate. And I don't know how that could possibly get fixed at this point. It seems like the music industry is just so more set in their ways than it used to be. They just, until an artist gets enough clout to write their own songs, it doesn't seem like they're allowed to write their own songs. And that takes long enough that they're no longer speaking for the youth. They're speaking for their generation now. It's a weird paradigm. And I just wanted to I wanted to rant about it a little bit. I find it unfair to you guys. I think the young generation gets a really bad rap. And the older generation has always said of the younger generation that they're lazy and entitled and, you know, they don't want to do anything and their values are skewed. And they've always said that. They said that about my generation. They said, the older people said that about my parents' generation. When they were teenagers in the 60s, the older generation said that about them. Everybody gets that rap. But they've taken popular music and popular literature away from us. The only films that seem to be out anymore are superhero flicks, remakes, biopics, and the only films that seem to actually say anything relevant, are all aimed at an older audience. They're made by older people, aimed at older people, speaking for and about older people. And that's really unfortunate. You know, where is your film? It really is, Yeah, I was privileged enough to grow up with grunge music and the emerging like nu metal thing, and to have younger filmmakers that were doing interesting things that really spoke to the youth. And a lot of those movies aren't around. You know, you can't find them as easily anymore, but they said something to us then. And I think the youth now really needs that. We need movie companies to allow young filmmakers to make films that speak to their generation in a relevant way. And there is some of that. There does seem to be some of that. You know, you got places like Netflix and whatnot that are doing stuff really seem to be aimed at the youth. And you do have some musicians doing that kind of thing. Well, you have a lot of them, but a lot of them are independent. You got to go on YouTube and search around Spotify to find it. It's not being put out there in a way that it is mass marketable, I guess, which is, I don't know. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's unfortunate, but I don't know. I like music that speaks to the young, and movies that speak to the young, and books that speak to the young, and I find that I have to look a lot harder to find them than I should. And that's my thoughts on it. So anyway, thank you for sticking with me through this rant. Anybody that's still watching, right? And, you know, yeah, here in a sec, there's an end screen. You should check out my reviews playlist. You should subscribe to my channel, check out my songs. And that's my shameless self-promotion for the day. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Okay? Peace out, guys. I love you. Bye-bye.